Well, I've been up in Scotland for the last few days covering the Scottish referendum, along with the world's media who are gathered at a convention centre just down the road. Huge international focus on what's going on here in Scotland. I'm with Mure Dickie, our Scotland correspondent. Can you just give us a sense of what the mood's like in Scotland at the moment?
Well, it's a very interesting mood among some people. Anticipation, excitement at the possibility of a new dawn for an independent Scotland. For other people looking at the same kind of possibility, there's anxiety, fear even among some people about what might happen to Scotland outside the UK. And even among those who aren't so partisan on either side, a real sense of sort of nervousness, I think, that we are now just a few days away from what is going to be a really far-reaching and important decision.
And you've been covering this story for a couple of years, but it seems that the Westminster political class have only just woken up to the fact that we could be about to witness an earthquake in Scotland, with the polls showing the two sides neck and neck. Do you get a sense of desperation in the pro-union camp?
Well, that's certainly how it looks from up here. A lot of people in Scotland have been much less convinced that the union was safe for a long time, and there is a feeling that kind of folks down in London, inside that Westminster bubble in particular, that they haven't really been paying attention. And so when we had that first poll that showed a yes lead, suddenly you've got a big reaction, you know, Prime Minister's questions being cancelled, flags are being run up flagpoles. And I think a lot of people up here kind of feel you've just realised that something important is happening.
Yeah, I was speaking to a few people in Edinburgh yesterday who said exactly that it was too little too late. It smacked of panic. The Prime Minister putting the saltire, the Scottish flag above Downing Street, they thought was possibly patronising, maybe a bit insulting. Do you get the sense there is just the sort of sense that this is running away from the no camp?
I think there's the feeling of momentum, that crucial momentum has definitely shifted towards yes in the last few months. I mean, the yes campaigners themselves haven't been so surprised by the polls. You know, this is what they've been saying would happen. They've been feeling that they were making progress for a long time. They felt that the polls that were putting their support at very low levels, or putting the lead for no as a very big one, they weren't convinced by those polls. So they, you know, they're saying this is kind of what we expected. But when you see this kind of almost panicky reaction from the South, I think people kind of think, well, okay, well, what does it mean? Do we trust what people are saying at this late stage?
Yes.
Can it change the dynamic of the debate?
Well, one of the things we've seen in the last stages of the campaign is Gordon Brown, the former Labour Prime Minister, setting out a very firm timetable for further devolution to Scotland, more transfer of power to Holyrood, the Scottish Parliament. Do you think that's going to convince Scottish voters that Westminster is really serious about transferring things like tax-raising powers, more powers over welfare, job creation to the Scottish Parliament? Or do they think this is an empty promise being made at the heat of a campaign which can be discarded the moment there's a no vote?
Well, the Yes campaign is obviously trying to portray it as exactly that. I think it's difficult to say that, or for them to persuade people that nothing would happen after a no vote. There seems so much kind of political promises now. It would be very difficult for the main parties to go back on them. The details of them aren't really exciting for a lot of people you know, outside the political world, how much income tax, how much control over income tax you have, etc. But at least it gives a flavour that the status quo, which a lot of people here aren't very happy with, won't be what they're stuck with after no. And that's been important because one of the big problems for the no campaign has been a lack of positive vision. They've done their best to stress the positive elements of remaining in the UK, but by necessity, a lot of their argument has been about trying to raise doubts about Scotland's prospects as an independent country. And that's meant that they've really struggled to articulate a kind of a cheerful, an open-ended, a nice positive vision for Scotland within the UK. And at least the devolution, the stress on devolution of the last few days, which although it's late and not very clear to most people, it does help to build the message that things would happen even after no.
Well, the Yes campaign, the pro-independence campaign, have characterised the No campaign as being Project Fear, trying to put doubts into the minds of Scots that separation would be bad for the Scottish economy, particularly bad for defence, but particularly for the economy. And we've seen right at the final stage of the campaign a fairly obviously orchestrated operation by the British government to get financial services here in Edinburgh, the financial centre of Scotland, to come out and say, look, if Scotland goes independent, we will be leaving, we'll be moving our headquarters down to London. Do you think that's going to cut much ice with Scots?
Well, I think a lot of people whose livelihoods are connected with the financial sector will be listening with great attention. A lot of people in that business are already worried about what independence might mean. So yes, lots of people will think about that anew, about the risks, but there's another possible reaction in that you have a sense that maybe this is the establishment ganging up on people in Scotland. Previously, before devolution, a lot of businesses warned that it would be disastrous, and it turned out absolutely not to be. So again, there's people will hear it in different ways, and they'll react in different ways. This vote is still very much too close to call.
Well, that's right. You say that people will read all these different signals and messages in different ways, which makes it, as you say, very difficult to call. In the end, what's it got to come down to? Is it basically head versus heart, hope versus fear? What is it?
It's going to be all of those things, and we don't know the dynamic. We don't know how individual people are going to feel in that ballot booth. We're all going to be watching closely until Thursday.